Good evening to all of you.
Good evening.
So I am really honored to be here this evening with all of you, and I want to congratulate all the honorees and the work that you are doing and that all the people in this room are doing is really remarkable. And I want to congratulate Tom O'Connor, Peter Dooley, Jessica Martinez, and Dory Samuels on putting together this really fabulous and wonderful meeting. So thank you. It's really wonderful to see so many new folks that are coming into this movement, the safety and health movement, and this workers movement, to see so many different people and communities coming together to do this work, to address the injustices that workers are facing, the inhumane conditions, and fighting back. But my role here tonight, a very privileged role, is to introduce our awardee for the Tony Mazzocchi Lifetime Achievement Award, Bill Kojola, who I have the privilege and honor of working with for many, many years before he came to the AFL-CIO and worked with me as my partner in crime and trying to advance the interests of workers for 15 years. Prior to that, at the laborers, the cement, lime, and gypsum, but many people don't know that Bill got his start with the COSH movement, as many of us in this room did, working with KOSH, one of the first COSH groups, or the first COSH groups. Excuse me, I am corrected. The first COSH group in the country, and many of you in this room have worked with Bill, and Bill was one of those folks that his background is Scandinavian. He's Finnish. They're not real flashy, right? But if you want to have somebody out there with you, solid as a rock, that you depend upon, and that you can always go to for whatever is needed to provide you, the judgment, the foundation, the steadfastness, and sort of never giving up, but most importantly, on what is right and what is wrong, and just going forward and making sure that workers in this country had the voice that they needed, safety on the job, and the protections that they needed to, that they were afforded to. And so Bill recently made a bad decision in life, by opinion, and he decided it was time to retire from the AFL-CIO, and from doing this work for nearly 40 years. But Bill, over his work at the AFL-CIO, he was the one for any healthcare workers out there during pandemic flu. You needed a friend. You needed somebody there taking on the infectious disease community, taking on the hospitals to make sure that workers were protected. It was Bill Kojola. For all the work that was done around organizing shipyard workers at Avondale, bringing that campaign together, it was Bill Kojola. For looking forward and looking at some of the issues that are coming at workers, the issues of nanotechnology, the person in this labor movement on behalf of workers who has been there at countless meetings and countless sessions and making sure that workers' interests have to be dealt with, and worker safety and health has got to be the center of what we're doing here. It is Bill Kojola. So I am honored tonight to introduce my friend and my colleague, Bill Kojola, and want to ask all of you to join me in congratulating him on this Lifetime Achievement Award for his many, many decades of terrific work and service to workers in this country.
Thank you very much. I'm honored and humbled to receive this Lifetime Award from the COSH groups. And my 27-year-old son said, "Lifetime, huh, Dad?" that means you're old. And so, in many ways, you know, I thought about that, and I guess I am old. And I've had nearly 40 years involvement in occupational safety and health, and during that time, we've seen tremendous advances in the protection of workers in this country. And the COSH groups have played an important role in making sure that those advances are seen in workplaces. And in the first 20 years or so of that 40 years, it was a lot easier to get things done in the workplace. It's a lot tougher now. But where I got my start, as Peg mentioned, was with the first COSH group in Chicago, COSH. And I was a graduate student in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota at the time, in the early 1970s, an anti-war activist, and that's the Vietnam War. There have been many since then, unfortunately. And I was trying to figure out what to do, and my girlfriend at the time, and now wife for many years, and a brother who was an organizer for the United Electrical Workers. And he said, you know, I was involved in a conference that was started and it was held in 71 or 72 by the Medical Committee for Human Rights. And it was a conference around occupational safety and health. And coming out of that conference was the decision to create a COSH, and the first COSH was in Chicago, COSH. And so he talked to me and he said, you know, maybe you should move to Chicago and get involved in occupational safety and health. I said, well, why not, you know? I'm in my 20s and I'll do anything. So my wife and I packed up and moved to Chicago, and I got a job, and then I spent my evenings and weekends and all of my free time volunteering with the COSH group in Chicago. And I must say, when I first started, I didn't know shit. I didn't know anything about the trade union movement. I didn't really know shit about how local unions did their thing. I didn't know much about safety and health, but I learned. And you know, sometimes I was a quick learner, sometimes a little slow. That's part of the Scandinavian part of me, I guess. But I learned, and you know, I realized that, you know, everyone starts out at the beginning. All of us do. Every one of us has. So you've got to start somewhere. So start from the beginning. And so I learned a lot. Volunteering for COSH. That's where I got my sense about worker safety and health. That's where I learned my trade union principles. That's where I became, instead of an anti-war activist in Vietnam, I became an advocate for worker safety and health. And COSH was immensely successful. And it helped spawn the COSH movement around the country as you know it now. And we have in this room one of the key leaders of COSH who was involved in those early years, and that's Jim Howe. Jim, where are you? Jim was the United Auto Workers for many years, but before that, he worked at GM Electromotive in the Chicago area, and was one of the key leaders in COSH that made COSH extremely effective. So during my time in COSH, which was about 10 years, I was the treasurer for a while. You know, I tried to count the money to make sure we could pay the phone bill and the rent. Was on the medical and technical committee, you know, doing trainings and stuff for workers. And in 1980, then I got a job with the trade unions. And I've really been working for unions ever since. And as Peg mentioned, the last 15 years with the AFL-CIO. Not only was it an honor to work for the AFL-CIO representing all of labor, but it was a tremendous opportunity and honor to work for Peg Seminary. vibrant, active, nationwide movement for worker safety and health is an invaluable ally and partner to the trade unions in advancing safety and health. And in addition to learning shit along the way, there's a couple things I learned that I want to finish with. The first thing is things don't always stay the same. You know, when the COSH movement first started, it was strictly trade unions and a bunch of medical, technical, legal people who were doing safety and health. And now the COSHs are much broader than that. And they really reflect in many ways the changes in the nature of our work, in the nature of our workforce, in the nature of the issues that we're dealing with. So now you're dealing with worker centers, immigrant workers, low-wage workers, and you're expanding your efforts to address the health and safety issues that affect workers. So things don't stay the same. And the last thing I'd like to leave you with that I learned was that no one does this alone. So while this honor is given to me as an individual, all of us have a role collectively to advance safety and health, because that's where our power resides, is the collective action of all of us. Whether we work for a trade union, whether we work for a worker center, whether we're another organizational ally or an individual working somewhere to help, we need all of our collective efforts to make that happen. So it's with that I accept this award. Thank you very much.